and welcome to this look at the Body Synths Metal Fetishist. This is a really amazing percussion synthesizer, a little sort of crazy control box, which we saw first at Superbooth this year, I think it was. We first ran into it and really knocked our socks off. It's just got so much energy and power. We had to review it, so yeah, here it is. So in terms of like overall controls and everything, we have an oscillator section here. We have an oscillator decay envelope. We have a noise generator, a filter with a decay envelope here. We have volume and volume decay. We've got distortion effects here. A trigger button to make the sounds go. We have a play and stop button there. Random skips generator, which will skip your steps. We have a random step modulation generator, which is kind of like the key to the Metal Fetishist, if you will. We also have an external input and a CV sort of interface with the outputs in white and the inputs in black. Essentially what you have is an oscillator, got a global decay there. The oscillator has pitch control, has two waveforms, and in addition to the oscillator we also have this noise generator, and this knob here acts as like a mix control. So fully to the right is your noise, fully to the left is your oscillator. And for the oscillator itself, we also have this nice little envelope here. This is like a pitch envelope. Let's move that over there. We've got a global decay there, and these two are not connected, so we could have like a really long decay there. Each of the envelopes go from around 1 millisecond to 3 full seconds. Due to the modulation that's kind of embedded within the architecture, it kind of sounds like multiple things at times. So you will hear like drum beats, you will hear sort of like acid lines. It does so much, even though fundamentally it is a monophonic synthesizer. So we have this oscillator section, and the oscillator goes from 30 Hz up to 1500 Hz. And the pitch knob defines the minimum frequency of the oscillator. So when we're doing step modulations, we're going up from there basically. And that's also the same with the filter. have kind of like noise generator side here, and we have the filter side here. So we've got high pass and low pass filters. We've got cutoff and resonance. And again, like before on the pitch side, we have a decay and an amount for the movement of the filter. So we just put a nice long decay on that. It's in low pass mode now. This thing sounds amazing when you push the resonance right to the top. It's got a really beautifully characterful filter. Yeah, this is with very minimal effects. I'll turn the effects right off. Oh, that's beautiful. It never squeals like in feedbacky ways. It always kind of just about behaves itself, which is good. So then, yeah, we have this. We have the filter envelope, which is obviously great fun. For all those kind of choppy electro sounds. And you'll notice that the decay here and the decay here and the decay here, they all can be set differently. So we could have a very choppy sound with a long tail, or we could have a very short sound with a more of a acid squelch. I guess that's the other thing to mention, is that it gets very acidy at times because you've got the filter section moving around with super high resonance. It gets acidy for sure. Let's have a listen to the high pass filter. So I found it's a great thing to do to flick between the two while it's playing back. You'll hear it later. What that does is it completely changes the texture of the sound of what's coming out. Completely changes the sound, really. Obviously having a high pass or a low pass, but that switch is kind of quite good for like doing a little B section when you've been jamming around. I find the low pass section is really where it's at, but there are some cool little effecty sci-fi kind of things that you can do with the high pass. Let's have a quick look at the effects, because there's only two of them. So we have rust. Let's just make that a bit longer. We have this rust sound, which it works so well with the filter. Works pretty well with the filter. And if you compare that to having, so that's effect on full, if you compare that to having no effect, this thing sounds amazing. There is also a corrosion effect. Let's turn that resonance down a bit. Turn it into low pass mode. This one is way more of a, like a digital downsampling kind of thing. Whereas the other one is like this absolute chaos, and I think it's got a little bit of gain boosting, and it's got some kind of harmonic addition according to the manual. Okay, so those are the effects. You're going to hear them all in context anyway, so if that wasn't the best demo you've ever seen, you will see me messing around with them in this video. I mean, it's really simple. It's so simple, but it really does take a little bit of time to kind of get into it and work it out. And I think what I really enjoy about this thing is that I don't think I have still worked it out, because it's still doing stuff that is kind of like, I'm trying to work out what the sound is doing and I don't know what's happening. In the beginning when I got it, I really struggled to kind of, I don't know, I struggled to kind of click with it, even though I'd heard some amazing demos of it. But for a little while when I first used it, I was like, wow, it's super simple. It's just like an oscillator and a filter and that's it. But it's actually, I don't know, there's some way that these elements are interacting that really brings something extra, I find, in absolute honesty. You sometimes buy gear and it does exactly what you think it's going to do, and there's like no surprises. This has been like so full of surprises when I've been messing around with it, and like the high pass low pass thing, when you do get a great sound you can completely alter it and it really brings something new to the table. But it's also got some really great design ideas. So what we're going to look at first is the steps here. So we've got a knob here for steps, which is weird, isn't it? No, it's not. It's actually bloody amazing. So what you can do, we've got our sequence playing back there. That is just generating random triggers forever in the off state. In on state, it'll generate a 4-step pattern. And it'll also, if I move it to, let's say, 10, it will add 6 more to the original 4-step pattern. And as far as you keep going to the right, it will store all the stages that you're at. So if you really liked those 4 beats that were really like crunchy and choppy, let's move it back a bit. There we go. There's the acid thing I was talking about. So if we move it back there, we can move it forward again, and it won't lose those 4, it'll add some more onto them. Hopefully you can hear that. Okay, so we've got the steps running. Let's have a look at the random step mod. So we've got random step mod, as mentioned before. That's going on the cutoff at the moment. So you can hear that moving around. If we turn it down to nothing, there's no random step mod there. Now we have random step mod. Let's see what happens if we put it on the pitch. Okay, so that's the random step mod on pitch and on the noise. And as I said before, we can just literally patch in a cable here if we want the step mod to also go to noise. And then obviously we have to turn up how much that's doing, but you can hear that that's pulling the noise in. This is like for the wet dry mix there. So yeah, so we also have the random skips, which work in a really cool way because, okay, so at the moment we've got our pattern playing and it's not doing any skips. We are just hearing like the one every time. So if we pull up the random skips, it just chooses some random steps to pull away, but it doesn't alter them. It keeps them as they are. It pulls away the random ones, but if you pull it down to the 0 and then pull it up again, it chooses different ones. And the more you pull to the right, the more notes it takes away. The more you pull to the left, the more it brings back. But the great feature of the steps mode and the random skips is that you pull them down to nothing and bring them back up, and it will alter which ones they are. So let's do that with the steps now. I'll try and pull it back to the same place. So that's back on 0. You can hear it's making different sequences every time. So yeah, you don't have the sort of step sequence thing that you know, we're all used to having, but this is actually way better because it just, if you don't like what it's doing, you just pull it back and then pull it back up again, and then you've got some complete awesome chaos coming out of it. In terms of inputs and outputs, you have MIDI input, which only takes the MIDI clock. This is the audio output. There's a mono audio input, and what the audio input does, which is very nice, is it replaces the noise. So this knob becomes a wet dry mix for the oscillator and whatever you've got coming in there. So yeah, really nice sort of option. Anyone who knows me will know I like to do kind of unorthodox things with gear, like MIDI feedback and plugging the wrong things into the wrong place a lot of the time. Sometimes on purpose, sometimes completely by accident. But I think, yeah, this really does allow that, and you'll see that in this video. Kind of part of the alien like trying to tether this alien thing that's there. It's kind of like you can't really control it. You can't, like, it's in a bit of a cage. It's kind of in a cage, but it's trying to fight you to get out. And you're kind of half wanting the monsters to come out of the cage and half like really just trying to keep that cage door closed because you know it's going to be absolute chaos. That's how I would see it. It is an amazing synth. It's the first thing from Body Synths. It's the first thing these guys have created, and it's an absolute masterpiece, I'd say. Like, visually, sonically, it's stunning. In terms of the interface, it's really, really well crafted. It's clear that they've done a lot of research, I would say. They've done a lot of research and testing into these features and also into the limitations, because yes, I'm sure this unit could have been 4 times the size with loads more stuff going on. But in actual fact, the simplicity of it is so imperative to the performance abilities. And I think that's another thing that I'm always very conscious of, is like limitation and simplicity, particularly when doing things like playing live. You need that simplicity. However, what the simplicity leads you to do is to explore further and think differently. And when you have those limitations, you end up doing some really, really interesting stuff. Whereas if there was too many options, a bit of a paradox of choice, you might just kind of quote unquote play it safe with it. And this machine was not designed to be played safe. This machine was designed to go AWOL. Okay, that is the Sonic State review of the Body Synths Metal Fetishist. I've actually gigged with this twice before I've done this review, so that was kind of like unintentional, but it's worked out really well because it meant that I got kind of really behind it, and I've been using it live in front of people, and I can tell you that it really does punch. It really sounds absolutely as fat as what you've heard today. Much of the audio on this recording is unprocessed. You're just hearing the direct output of this thing going into my sound card. The only time there was any effects on anything is when you can see a pedal, such as this Mooga Fuga or the Big Sky. It's the only time you've ever heard any effects processing of this. So I can't imagine, if you have a really nice distortion unit or you have some other brilliant effects, this is really going to take the biscuit. It's hugely fat sounding, I'll say. In terms of things that I would change on it, obviously things like stereo in, stereo out, and that kind of thing, and more MIDI implementation than the clock would be good. There is one thing that I thought was a slight oversight, which is when you plug in the audio input, you lose the noise source, right? So then you've got this oscillator and you've got possibly another oscillator coming in here. And what I thought would be fantastic was, instead of losing the noise source, you lose the oscillator. So you've got the input coming in with the white noise. And I can see why they haven't done that, because you have this whole section that would then be redundant for the oscillator. So I can see why they've done that. However, for me personally, with some of the percussive things you can do with white noise and input, that would be my sort of cherry on the top. Yes, so that is the Metal Fetishist. For all of our Patreon supporters, we are going to have some loops which we're going to be giving away. Yeah, so join our Patreon if you can. Thank you very much for watching, and have a very nice Christmas, and we will see you all in the new year. Take care.